Hello and welcome to 365 Explained. We are coming live from Comms vNext in Denver, Colorado. I am joined by Zach, and we have a very special guest of Ollie, who we'll come to in just 1 second. Zach, we're here to talk about extending the contact center extending Teams into the contact center, right? So do you want to just kind of get us up to speed a little bit and then introduce Ollie for us?
Yeah, sure. So today, previous episodes of our podcast, we spoke about voice applications. We spoke about, Queues app a little bit. We spoke about call queues, that sort of thing. But now we're going to be maybe taking it a little step further, and we're going to be talking about fully fledged contact centers inside of Teams and what they may look like. But just a little bit of scene setting. Microsoft Teams, we have Teams Phone and native functionality inside of Teams Phone. You're going to be looking at call queues, that sort of thing. The Queues app itself, which is very much contact center light kind of experience.
This is very much your favorite topic, right? You've been talking today on call queues and like that's kind of your talk that you wheel out, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. There's not too many people talking about it, so I do like to bring it up.
But on that note, though, your topic specifically was the gaps in call queues and the kind of how far you can get those things, right?
Yeah, so it's Queues app, what we know and what's still missing. That was my talk at Comms vNext this year, and it's kind of going to perfectly put us on to our guest Ollie, who we'll introduce in a second.
Yeah, sorry, Ollie.
He'll introduce himself, I'm sure, but. He works for Luware, and they're going to plug a lot of those gaps about what's actually missing. So probably a perfect time to let's hand on over to Ollie and let him introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm absolutely honoured to be on your.
This is not an entirely last-minute thing. This is very well structured and well organised.
Yeah,
right?
well, I thought you guys had picked me, but I was told by Andrew that he approached you, so I was quite disappointed.
Really?
When I heard that. But either way.
I very much picked you. I don't know what Zach's told you.
Good.
So.
Thanks for making me think.
I definitely picked you as well.
Brilliant. That's what I'd like to hear. Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm Ollie Lively. I'm head of sales for Northern Europe and North America at Luware. So as Zach said, we provide CX solutions. CX is very much the kind of modern term now, but yeah, you would call that contact center for Microsoft Teams and for that Microsoft ecosystem.
And when we're talking about a contact center, what sort of scale would you tend to put that bucket in? Is it about the type of organization you are, or is it about the size of user base that you're dealing with? Like what makes a company needs to have a contact center?
Yeah, I think it's one when people think of contact center in the industry, they imagine hundreds of people in a room either receiving hundreds of inbound calls or making hundreds of calls.
Yeah.
And I think we're actually not really operating in those contact centers. I mean, obviously they exist and we'll take them. But if we think about the type of organization that uses Teams, they're the kind of knowledge workers, right? They need to collaborate with colleagues. They need to be able to share information. So when we're talking about contact center or CX within Teams, it's those kind of customers. So we're actually looking a lot at kind of different pockets of users. So some will be those customer-facing user groups, okay?
Yep.
So they're receiving customer inquiries. Others will be like help desks, for example. Some of those are internal. Some might be sales teams. Some might be HR teams. So I think what we're actually, when you think of a contact center, most of our customers that we're working with, they're not actually in that kind of traditional, I would call them that kind of chicken farm contact center, but they're more in that kind of pockets of knowledge workers.
And is that to do with that they're using Teams as the base for the contact center? Is that, if you're a chicken contact center, you would be on some really hardcore system that is just call volume, whereas there's a whole layer of other kind of smarter capabilities that you can have for using Teams. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's it. If you're in those kind of more chicken farm contact center scenarios, you're going to have an asset that you're sweating, right? Something maybe on-prem, that you're sweating. You're not going to be that type of organization that's moved to Teams. Okay,
yeah.
The guys that are moving to Teams, that's a kind of a board level decision downwards to say this is our collaboration platform, and then they're looking at platforms like ours to say, okay, well, we're migrating off like an Avaya or a Mitel or a Cisco, and we need to we need to fulfill these use cases.
Okay. So, Zach, to you, like, Teams has been around now for X number of years. It's getting to a fairly mature point with telephony in particular, but kind of in the early days of Teams as a telephony platform, there were fairly limited options for how you could integrate a contact center. Do you want to kind of run us through the history? Because there's three mechanisms you can use.
Yeah, so there's those three mechanisms. We've got the connect level contact center, and effectively with that, there is an SBC in the mix that
A session border controller, right?
Yeah. The session border controller, sorry.
That's all right.
In the mix that you are placing direct routing on, and that's how you get into Teams. But there is almost a hairpin between you and the contact center provider, where calls are hairpinning in and out, where they're doing the kind of clever manipulation of the call and getting features, the contact level features that are missing directly in Teams are coming from the contact center provider themselves. So you're having to kind of hairpin calls in, and there's optional Graph API calls if the providers are willing to do that themselves, that to be able to manipulate the calls and do certain things.
So that was kind of you had Teams was over here running on Microsoft stack, you had your contact center somewhere else, and you just send a SIP trunk call out to the contact center where magic happens to it and it came back in.
Yep.
Okay.
You're running two platforms kind of side by side, and the way I'd kind of describe that is you're using Teams as the endpoint, just like a handset on the desk. You're saying, okay, we're going to do all the routing in the third-party contact center, and then when the call's ready to be answered by an agent, it's just sent to Teams over a SIP.
And is it fair to say, is that a legacy way of doing things, or it's just a different way of doing things? It was the original way of doing things.
I think the reason it's been so popular is it was the quickest route to market for a Teams integration. You could basically take everything you'd already developed and then just connect a SIP trunk to Teams.
Okay.
So it was a really quick route to market to have a Teams integration.
And so there were issues there, I'm assuming, around latency and making sure you've got good connectivity and stuff. Like where did you go after that if you needed something, better or different?
Yeah. So that these that we're talking about now, the Connect and Extend, which is what we'll come on to next, these are certification programs from Microsoft. So you would bring your contact center to Microsoft and get certified as a contact level Connect level contact center, or an Extend level contact center, and now the new one, which is Unify, which used to be called Power. The one we'll talk about now, which is the Extend level contact center, this is the one that Luware lives in, and some of the other providers. This is kind of my favorite flavor of contact center level, but effectively what Luware are doing, they don't really mind what the PSTN connectivity method is into Teams. You get it into Teams, and then Luware are building. They're using the Graph APIs and the endpoints to be able to manipulate the call and do the contact level stuff directly within Teams.
So you're kind of sending signals into Teams to say, this user's in a call, we need to do this with it, forward it here, do other stuff with it. It's manipulating what's there already.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The way I like to describe that is you can imagine the Extend contact center as the puppet master, the Graph API are the strings, and then the Teams call is the puppet. So we're essentially sat in the customer's Teams environment, basically just directing that Teams call around.
Yeah.
The nice thing there is that the platform that's Extend there doesn't actually handle the media stream. So that media stays in the Teams tenant the whole time, and we're basically just sending signaling.
So that's a really good distinction there that we talked before about having to have an SBC and sending SIP trunking for calls, whereas this is, we don't care if you're calling plans, we don't care if you're operating connects, we don't care if you're direct reading, what mix of all of that stuff is. We as long as you have the call into Teams and you have good quality into Teams, we can deal with that in as higher fidelity as you've got it inside Teams already.
Yeah, and I think for customers setting up, right, that's where there's the big distinction between Connect and Extend. So if you're trying to set up a connected contact center, you've got multiple parties involved. You've got a SIP provider, an SBC provider, the customer, and a contact center provider. The SBC provider and the SIP provider, they have no interest or no skin in the game. But you're having to, the customer or the partner there is having to get the SBC provider to set up the routing.
A lot of finger pointing if something goes wrong.
You need to send this call here. You need to do this as a SIP trunk. And it's like that can be weeks or months before you can even get a call into the contact center. But as long as you got Teams voice enabled, then you can set up a extended contact center within an hour.
And so we've got connected and extended. There was a third one you mentioned that's been renamed?
Yeah, so was Power, now Unify. And this is definitely the newest kid on the block for kind of integration methods. It's using that Teams Phone extensibility stuff that you may have seen as well, but it's effectively using ACS or Azure communication services on the back end as well to be able to deliver calls to agents. So it's not necessarily just Teams endpoints; it can be other endpoints as well.
Okay, and so that I guess for you guys provides a good kind of platform for extending beyond just Teams capabilities into broader areas, right?
Yeah, it's exactly that, and I think there's a bit of a misconception, right? You would assume connect, extend, unify. Unify is going to be the most integrated, and I think that's what we heard a lot. Is okay, unify is the most integrated, but I think as you guys have rightfully just said, actually, it opens up possibilities to build our own client, right?
Okay.
Away from Teams. So if anything, it's less integrated to Teams. That's not a bad thing. It just means that you can fulfill different use cases. So for example, if you want to handle that call in a widget in your CRM, like Salesforce or Dynamics or ServiceNow, you can handle that whole call in that CRM. You don't have to answer it in Teams and handle it in Teams.
Yeah.
We can build that client. We're building our own client because it means we have more control, right? We can build it all into one UI. We don't have to worry about a Teams toast. We don't have to worry about a Teams call handling client.
But you can still pull the audio in from the Teams infrastructure. So an org that has moved to Teams, it's still, you're using that, but you're not necessarily using the front end of
exactly.
that.
So it still offers that same thing with as Extend, where we're saying we're totally agnostic to how the traffic comes in, right? It could be operator connect, direct routing, call plans.
So we talked about call queues and voice apps and so voice apps containing auto attendance and call queues. That's here's a menu, here's a way to distribute calls. What is the key thing that is different in what's the main thing people would move to a contact center for? Like, I'm assuming there is, different strokes for different folks depending on the organization, but like where do you build from that?
Yeah, I think there are two major things. One of them is still reporting. Right.
Okay.
Live reporting, historical reporting, that granularity. I think especially live reporting, right? So building dashboards, seeing what users are doing, seeing what live demand is like, managing user availability, and then I think the other thing is intelligent routing. So just to put that into context, checking external parameters and routing based on those parameters. So call comes in, we see that. Okay, well, Ben is one of our VIP customers. He spends $1 million a year with us, so we want to route him to his account manager who knows that account. And then if that account manager doesn't answer, we route it to a sub-team of AEs underneath him that also understand that. So it's that kind of intelligent routing. And that really only starts to make sense when you look at those use cases of what does the customer want to achieve. Do they want to route to somebody who knows the account well? Do they want to try and provide some self-service options and actually stop those calls going to the agents, things like that?
Okay. So on the reporting side, I think I remember from your talk today, like there used to be a limitation of how many days was it you could do reporting natively?
Yeah, so 27 days.
Okay.
That's recently changed to 45 days.
But that's still only just a month's worth, right?
Yeah, for some organizations, financial, that sort of thing. Even 45 days is not going to be enough.
And natively, what are your options for the reporting? Like, is it Power BI? Is something built in? What are you?
So the Qs app itself does have some of those built-in reporting, the real time. It's going to all depend on what your requirements are from reporting. So I'd definitely take a look, but just basic information of calls, that sort of thing for the queue, who's been answered. But if it's more end-to-end reporting, the call came in. went here, rang these agents, this person picked up. That sort of reporting is not.
So kind of like,
natively
I'm
available.
assuming it's very important to have a ladder view of like end to end what happened with a call and piecing all the bits together, which I'm assuming in a full blown platform, like you'd think Microsoft has all the bits there, they can see it, but surfacing it sounds like it's quite a challenge.
Yeah, that cradle to grave is something we hear a lot, and like honestly, just being transparent is not even simple. It's that cradle to grave is something that it's kind of we're forever chasing that. But I mean, when we talk about reporting, obviously things like dashboards, Power BI, that's where we're at now. I think where we're going is using AI for that reporting. There's so much data that we capture, and it's what is AI good at? It's at analyzing that data and giving insights. So what we're working towards is actually having an AI assistant that's going to proactively inform managers and supervisors when you're missing SLAs.
Okay.
Decide why or explain why you're missing it. Oh, we don't have enough people with this skill level. And then the third step to that, which I think is really cool, is then saying, do you want me to make this configuration change so we then have enough agents available, for example?
Yeah.
So that's where we're looking to go with that reporting, to proactively monitor it and advise, to kind of assess why that's happening, and then actually go and make those changes. That's kind of where.
So you mentioned the magic AI word, like that's the word of the last 2 years, right?
Yep.
So where, if these mechanisms that we talked about are native to Teams, is AI, like that's not a Teams AI thing, that's a Luware AI thing. Is that how you differentiate yourselves from other contact center vendors on the market with those kinds of features and functionality?
Yeah, I think AI is like synonymous with customer experience, and most people would think about the chatbots, the self-service, the voice bots, which we can do that. We are doing that, but I think areas like reporting, areas like configuration and admin, that's massively untapped, and that there's quite a lot of risk and kind of hurdles that a customer needs to go through before they can let a chatbot loose on their customers.
Yeah.
But if AI can be there and proactively kind of monitor SLAs and inform supervisors, it's like, okay, well, there's not much risk there, but there's a huge amount of impact that can have. So yeah, we're trying to look at those other areas. Another area is kind of on that configuration side to say, okay, well, you've got let's say you've got a new supervisor who comes in, they're not trained on the platform, so why can't we have an AI assistant to say, okay, well, explain to me in natural language how you want your workflow to be, what experience you want to offer in that queue, and then AI can go and build that workflow using the contact center tools.
Because traditionally that would have been the remit of kind of, consultancy and doing project deployment. That would have been your area, right? So how do you approach a project around a contact center with a customer? Like, how do you get to the point of recommending, one of the products out there?
It's definitely trying to understand what their requirements are, what their feature set. A big one that feature-wise that I come across all the time is skills-based routing.
Yeah.
So customers will, if they're looking at contact centers, that's a specific feature that gets brought up to me all the time. That's not something that we can handle natively within Teams. So that will automatically kind of push us down a path of talking about these bigger contact centers. But understanding, what those requirements are and building out, exactly what they need, finding the right integration model. As Ollie rightly mentioned, some take more time than others, take more effort. We've had Luware Extend contact centers stood up within a week or so. The customers have then started using it with anger. That's super helpful, even from a POC perspective.
Yeah.
To be able to just get people using contact center.
So that's almost a good side effect of, like, it's in the cloud, it's like hooked into the Microsoft Teams back end, right? That it's relatively lightweight to get turned around.
Yeah, and we've come a long way as well from with the extend level contact center. The people weren't really looking at those to begin with because of limitations with the Graph API. But where we're at now is you can do so much with those Graph APIs. There's not a massive amount that we need Connect level contact centers and SBC vendors for. We can we could pass those signals into teams and do a lot of routing and mechanisms directly through those.
Okay. And so would things like Luware be omni-channel, multi-channel, whatever the right phrasing is, and able to do outbound as well as inbound and all that? Because that's another gap with core queues, right? Like it's all inbound only.
Yeah, absolutely. Multi-channel, omni-channel is a big one for customers. I think other channels as well, like SMS, social media, and a lot of that can come from inside the Microsoft ecosystem. But there are other providers, other kind of CPaaS providers out there that have maybe better coverage on things like SMS and WhatsApp. So yeah, we're not only looking inside the.
So you're not stuck in that bucket.
No, it's things like sometimes. I mean, Twilio is amazing for SMS. For example, you can go on there, you can rent a number, pay fractions of a pence per SMS, and things like WhatsApp as well. So yeah, looking to some of those other CPaaS providers sometimes provide those other modalities.
Okay, good stuff. Well, I think we'll start kind of edging towards wrapping up here, but a quick question around like what's the biggest mistake that you see people making when they're looking to get into deploying contact center?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's being, maybe a phrase not the right word, but it's like being too hesitant to actually just go and start a queue, start a trial, because I think people have come from that world where it's so complex, the lead times are so long. And now we're saying, okay, well, you can stand this up within a couple of days and let's get a POC going. And I would just encourage people to, just start trying, right? You really can try before you buy now. So I think that's honestly the biggest mistake, is too much hesitance in just starting and then working it out. Because with SaaS now and with cloud, you can kind of work it out as you go along to a certain extent.
I think there's a little bit of, as well, especially in the contact center space, of I need to have exactly what my agents have right now. But if they're working on 10, 15, 20-year-old PBXs and contact centers, taking that more consultative approach of here's what Teams can do, here's what contact centers within Teams can do, use this other functionality, these AI agents and all this other stuff that's coming along with it. Don't just copy what you've got, take that.
So like actually understand the business requirement, the business process, reevaluate it as possible. It's a super interesting notion you said there about getting the supervisor or the business representative to explain to an AI what you actually want, and then it will build it. I think that's a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, you use the resources like Zach. You use the consultants now. That lift and shift, it's like I shudder when I hear that. And then they're like, oh well, we'll lift and shift, and then we'll redesign it once it's up and running. It's like that's never going to happen.
No.
Use the opportunity now to redesign it and actually think about what you want to get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the final thing then, excluding the chicken farm type contact centers, is a new terminology to me. If I'm using it correctly. There used to be this conception with Skype for Business in the early days of Teams that it wasn't suitable as a contact center platform. I think that's a very challengeable opinion these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got customers running like 10,000 seats of contact center on Teams, and I think so many enterprises now, if we're talking about that scale, are choosing Teams as their collaboration platform. So
it's a unified collaboration. That's the whole point, right? So
it truly is, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Zach, any last words of wisdom?
No. I mean, thank you, Ollie, for being on. Check out Luware. Reach out to Ollie and reach out to us on LinkedIn if you do want to have a chat about any of this sort of stuff. We're more than happy to help.
Good stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And our last note is a super big thanks to Eric Marcy for putting on all of this stuff with the pod booth, for having us in. He's doing sterling work, all day, all night with pods back to back. So thank you very much, Eric. And thanks everyone out there. And we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.